Dr. Lucian Donahue recording. The date is July 19th, 2022. Before I read another file from the seemingly never-ending box, I have big news. Today, I am taking Charles out to lunch. I know, he absolutely needs it. Honestly, I have no idea how he does it. I swear he hasn't taken a day off since he started. A man can only eat takeout so many times. I admire the work ethic, sure, but Charles needs to be forced to take a break. If not for his sake, then mine. It's not too long before he starts sleeping in the office and skipping showers. I refuse to share space with someone with crumpled clothes and B.O. Of course, the real question is, Mexican or sushi? No matter. Work first, play later. Let's see. I am once again pulling from the box labeled CM-X-0589-EC. Let's see what we have today, shall we? Oh! Oh. Not this one. Snorefest. What about this one? Telekinetic cat? Ugh. Boring. This one sounds promising. Patient name, Roxanne Lawson. Transcript as follows.
I'm dead. Have been for a while now. I'm speaking literally, of course, darling. The big one, smiling at daisy roots. I'll start my tale with how I died. Not how many stories start, but we do live in odd times. I was a canary at the local joint. The place was a real cat's meow. Many girls would gladly see me in some concrete slippers for a gig like that. I was really good at it, too. My pipes sang for all types of men, gentle and rough. Oh, and I had a dream. I was going to be a star. But like most stars, I pulled many things into my orbit. And I always carried a torch for bad eggs. And Bruno, now, he was as spoiled and rotten as they came. Bruno was tall, dark, and as dull as bricks. He worked as muscle at the Raven's Roost, a competitor of my joint. I knew Bruno only looked my way because of who I worked for. That man could play poker with empty chairs and still play the wrong hand. He made for a good rube. Mr. Leonelli, the top pillow, asked me to keep a beat on him. What was a girl to do? Pitching woo was just the cherry. All was silk, darling. That was until my Bruno came to me one night. He had word that a storm was about to roll through town, and with it, he had planned to nip Mr. Leonelli's safe. At first I tried to talk some sense into that thick skull, but my words rolled right off that smooth cabbage of his. Funny thing is, the more he talked, the more I started having thoughts of my own. You see, not a week sooner did some big shot talent scout walk into my bar. Legit, too. He signed some big names. Mr. Leonelli didn't take a shine to that. He was shown the alley face first. Point is, I quickly realized that I'd been put in a cage, my wings clipped. A songbird who couldn't fly. Bruno, as you might suspect, had a plan that would land us in the big house with some fancy new bracelets. Or get us rubbed out for good. I decided right then and there I would come up with a plan to knock over Mr. Leonelli. After all, I knew the place, how many goons he had, and how to slip by. With my plan, we'd make out with a lousy amount of scratch, and by the time Mr. Leonelli was wise to us, we'd be halfway around the world. But darling, like I mentioned, my story starts at my death. Just my luck, we would pick the same night the law would raid that sweet little speakeasy. I'm sure you don't want to hear the details, but by the end of the night, Bruno was struck by the Chicago lightning, if you catch my drift. I was chased to the roof. Rain and heels don't make the best bedfellows. One fall later, and I found my end in an alley, one final kiss with the concrete. Let me tell you, when I came to on a slab, I was right beside myself. I counted my stars, but knew they were quickly dimming. I thought I survived the fall, but that doesn't mean I wasn't due to croak. There I was, laying on cold metal, the fuzz the floor above me. They would have questions, expect me to flip rat or be sent upriver. Even if I escaped, Mr. Leonelli would sooner see me swim in it. The walls were closing in fast around dear Roxanne. First thing was first, I pinned on my diapers. I wouldn't be caught dead there. That is when I became keen to my unique condition. I found a small mirror, and I fixed my face, as good as a girl can considering. That's when I found it. While trying to do the same to my hair, my fingers brushed the back of my head. It was caved in, more than it had a right to be, and me still walking. Dried blood flaked off. I'll admit, it took me a long time to accept what was plain as day. My hands kept reaching back. Each time I expected a different result, and each time I was shocked at what I found. When I was finally composed and not crying like some fresh babe, I realized I needed a plan. Mr. Leonelli's pals would think of me swimming with the fishes, as would the coppers milling about above me. This did provide me with a rare opportunity. From the sounds of it, it was still raining cats and dogs. Pretty heavy if I could hear it all the way down the basement. Nicking one of the coroner's hats from his coat rack, I made my way up. Now, one good thing I can say about being a gal is that you are practically invisible unless you're on stage, even a gal with gams like mine. So, all the elephant ears and gumshoes paid a dame like me no mind as I made my way to the front door. It was duck soup, darling. First thing first, I need to scram, and fast. I would need a car, some scratch, new rags, and a lot of luck. The streets were still abuzz as I made my way to the small apartment that Bruno and I had rented out on the side. If it weren't for that storm, I'm sure I would have been pinched. When I say the streets were lousy with the fuzz, I'm not overstating. They were hot on their heels for Mr. Leonelli. At least that's what I would have reckoned. No other reason to be combing the streets like this if they weren't savvy on the idea he was still in the area. I reached the front door of our little home away from home. I tried the door handle. Wouldn't you know it, doll, it was locked up tight. This forced me to use the fire escape. Not very ladylike, but Bruno had the keys, and by now he'd be on a slab of his own. For a brief moment I let myself hope he had found himself like me, dead but still walking. The dream was spoiled by realizing he'd looked like Swiss cheese, and a gal has to have standards, even a dead gal. I slid open the window and hurried inside. I barely had enough time to climb in and shake off the wet when I heard it. A voice spoke out, but it was strange. It was distorted and shook something terrible in every cell of what remained of my body.
Where are you?
Out of reflex, I dipped low. See, I was in the living room, and this voice, well, now, I couldn't place it. It was as if it was all around me and distant at the same time. My back was firmly placed at the rear of the old couch. Working up the courage, I slowly rose. Inch by inch, my face peeked over it. Nothing. Not taking any chances, I crawled slowly to the bedroom. My spare dresses were in the closet. I didn't know what that voice was, and I wasn't at all too interested to find out. I then edged my way to said boudoir. Once to it, I crawled inside and shut the door. Quickly but quietly, I peeled off my clothes and replaced them with something better for running. Now, darling, you have to know, I didn't have plain clothes stored there. The entire purpose of this apartment was to have a place to meet Bruno before work, so when I tell you that I put on something for running, it was a side-slit sequin dress. Of course, the only shoes I had were my spare heels. I struggled with those things, perhaps a bit much. My arm hit the inside of the closet door. Timing was just my luck, right in between thunderclaps. I froze. Whatever called out before heard me. I held my breath as I stood there, forcing myself to look between the wooden blinds. At first, it was nothing but strips of the darkened bedroom and wood, then movement. It whooshed into the room, gliding across the space like leaves falling in autumn. The fellow, if you could call it that, hadn't even touched the floor. It was a shroud of shadows that fell off it like a robe. Somehow its eyes were even darker, like staring into a bottomless well. The only hint that this creature before me wasn't just a trick of the light were its hands, pure bone, bleach white. If I wasn't a dead girl hiding in the closet, I'd have sworn I had a bit too much hooch. A bottle drops and glass breaks somewhere in the alley. For the first time, I was thankful for that stray feline. The dark specter spun in the direction of the sound. After a moment, it floated out of the room. The room seemed to brighten a tad as it did. Now, darling, I have no idea what that specter was, nor did I give it any mind. I laid low for a while before making my exit from that cramped space. I paced for quite some time, weighing my options. Mr. Leonelli's would be crawling, but I couldn't think of any other place that was a better mark. That joint's crew would have cleared out when they heard the hammers and saws pounding across the town. No doubt the main floor would have been cleared, but that hidden little speakeasy? Well now, that gem would have had hooch and scratch ready to be nicked by anybody in the wise. Would they find it hinky? As sure as the canary sings. But they would be busy serving time or pinning the job on each other rather than a dead gal. But first, I need a car. And no jalopy either. If the great Roxanne Lawson was going to go on the lam, it was going to be in style. And I knew just the ride that was my tune, and the fact it was Miss Leonelli's was just cherry. Grabbing my overcoat, I went out into the rain, using the door this time. I scampered from alley to alley, the red and blues still peeking through the storm. Wails of sirens barely rising above the wails of wind and the crack of thunder. For the life of me, I could not understand why the coppers were still searching. Have to hand it to their gusto. I was 4, maybe 5 alleys away when I heard it again. The dark spectre called out.
Where are you?
The strangest thing was, darling, that its voice was not impeded by the rain. Thinking it wise, I ducked into a nearby hash house. The few patrons gave me barely a glance. I took a booth, ordered a java, and kept my head down. The thing stopped just outside the door. It waited for a long moment, then it entered. Its shadowy form just passed straight through the glass, like it wasn't even there. It gave me quite the fright, so much so I couldn't help but let out a small yelp. Its attention snapped to me. I stood. My expression, I'm sure, was uncontrolled. A few people gave me odd looks. To confirm my fears, the fellow paid his bill and walked straight through this creature. In a mighty panic, I ran. The sound of my heels clacked across the tile as I entered the back kitchen. The cooks didn't take a shine to my sudden burst of appearance. I tried to make my way to the fire exit. I could still see the mass of dark floating slowly in my direction through that little window between the lobby and the kitchen. One of the goons of the cook grabbed me by the shoulders. Oh, they were shouting and turning beet red in the face. I clearly wasn't paying attention, and he could tell. With a flash of movement, he swiped my hat off. Now, darling, I've never seen a gentleman's face go from a bright red to a ghost white so fast in my life. The sight of dried blood and caved-in dome nearly put him under. I snatched my hat back and pushed him aside with ease at that point. The creature moved closer, parts of its shadowy form already peeking through the wall and counter. In my rush, one of my heels caught the floor wrong, and I went toppling towards the fryer. My hand rushed out to brace the fall, and it did. It had dipped into that boiling liquid first. I retracted it from the bubbling vat and made my way to the exit. I ran down the alleys, hid behind dumpsters, and ran some more. Old Roxanne began to piece things together. Now, your girl isn't usually slow on the uptake, but it took a while for it to really set in. I knew I was dead. That much we covered. But pain was absent from me. My hand should have been screaming at me. Yet, darling, I felt nothing. Even the rain, which I knew was cold and unpleasant, might as well have been a relaxing shower. More importantly, I had a strong guess as to what that thing was that was chasing me. It was death itself, darling. Ha! Now that made sense. The way I see it, death almost never has to track down neither Mac nor Dame. That explains why I was having trouble catching little me, in heels no less. Your normal gal would have been losing her wits, but, well, Roxanne Lawson, now, she was hitting on all 8. I had already settled on outrun the law and Mr. Leonelli. What's a few extra steps to outpace a bony fellow in black? It didn't take long for me to reach where I wanted to be, the bar. I stood in the alley overlooking my joint, the same place my sweet dumb Bruno and I met our ends. Fuzz covered the place like honey. Dix and Johns paced about taking crate after crate of hooch. Took them long enough to find the little hole in the wall. I only prayed they hadn't found the hidden safe. That beauty of a car I wanted I knew was parked just out back. Keys would be in the main office, with any luck in the very same safe. I couldn't just waltz on in. That would lead with me back at the big house, even if I did cause a fright before that. Fright. That's exactly what I needed. I knew what I had to do, but darling, I spent an awful amount of time building up to it. Eventually, my good hand began to pick at my blistered one. I braced myself for a pain that never came. I started small strips at a time. I peeled layer after layer of skin back and dropped them on the ground. Soon I found myself ripping, tearing, clawing at the muscle. One hand was covered in blood and the other was exposed bone up to the elbow. Now I'm no doctor, so I can't explain how I can move each finger without any muscle, but I could. I dropped my hat on the ground. At the end of the day, I'm a performer, darling, and this was going to be my best yet. I took the long way around and made it to the back of the joint. I felt almost disappointed. I redesigned my wardrobe for an audience of 0. Sure, the sight of that Ford Model A Deluxe was grand as pie, but without the keys, it wasn't going anywhere. So I made my way to the fire escape and to the roof. I pushed the thought of me falling off this very same roof out of my dome. Wouldn't you know it, the fire exit door was locked. Only one way in now. I hoisted my body into the large vents. I got stuck. It truly is a curse to have gams like mine. I heaved and hove until something gave, and I came crashing down as the vent gave way. I heard a snap. As I stood, I realized a bone stuck out awkwardly from one of my thighs. I didn't have time to be shocked. No, a little Daisy John did plenty of that for the both of us. We were in the hallway, his gun leveled at me as I stood there from the rubble. He was trembling, poor sap. He ordered me to freeze. It was showtime. I limped in his direction and outstretched my boned arm and let out a horrible moan. Bam! He fired. The force knocked me to the ground. I stood. Bam! I rose again. I heard shouting as the poor boy ran away. Others were rushing to the scene. I took my cue and exited stage left. My dress was ruined, but as long as I stuck to the shadows, I figured I was in the clear. The young fellow would try to explain, but the others would beat him down for firing his gun at his imagination bunk. It would have been laughable if not for that dreaded sound.
Where are you?
Ugh, not here, not now, I recall thinking as I hobbled my way faster to the office. Keys were on the desk. I nicked those before checking for the safe. Berries. The coppers haven't found it yet. The floorboards were still firmly in place. It was a trick to pry them up, but little work. Now came the hard part, cracking this can.
Where are you?
Death sure knew how to pile on the drama. Now, your old girl knows the basics of cracking, but I'm no expert at box jobs. That was more Bruno. My first attempts were sad and put me in a bit of an awful jam. Death was already making its way through the wall, and just like the hash house, it was taking its sweet time. I gave up on trying my hand at cracking and decided to guess. Mr. Leonelli's birthday? No luck. His anniversary? Wrong again. His daughter's birthday? Not a fat chance.
Where are you?
His son's birthday? Of course not. The day he bought that cute little pup? Try again. I had just enough time to try one last possible combination. Wouldn't you know it, Mr. Leonelli never changed it from its default 50-25-50. That old can popped open. I barely had time to nick the scratch as Death's fingers nearly grazed my dew. I was cornered. Death was between me and the door. There was no way I was going to get past, not in my heels, and there was no way I was leaving them behind. So, I flung my body out the window. My body landed hard on the ground below. Must have broken my spine because when I stood, the top half of my body flailed like a wet noodle. I didn't have time to worry about that. Death would soon be on me, and there's no way the fuzz didn't hear that crash. I should have timed it to the crack of lightning. You know what they say about hindsight, darling. So I hobbled and flapped my way over to that old flivver. I would like to say I sped off into the night, but it took me a while to right myself in the driver's seat. Even when I did, the car crawled forward. I didn't have much experience driving, especially in the storm. I should have just gotten a taxi. Darling, I have been on the run ever since. Not easy when parts of you look like a corpse and parts like a gym. Here's the skinny doctor. Death is slow, but is never far behind. So why did I stop off at some head doctor knowing I'm being chased? Truth is, I didn't mean to. The cursed thing was hot on my heels. I just so happened to run into this building. It chased me, of course, but the thing simply vanished as it passed through the threshold. I gave no pause and continued to run. You just happened to be the first mug I saw. I'm no fool. I know whatever stopped it before won't for long. However, I was given a chance to rest and talk about myself. I always did love an audience.
So, what do you think?
Some of these patients are complex. The amount of diagnosis required to even categorize this one is daunting.
Turn off work mode for a moment and tell me what you think.
Okay. I like the 1920s feel.
That's better. We'll get there, Charles.
You mentioned research on H. Gray and Olin's son, yes?
Ah, right, of course. I'm afraid there isn't much on Mr. Gray. From what I gathered, however, he used to be a detective in this city. Why he left the force isn't public record, nor is anything before that. He has no social media presence. None. He does pay to take out an ad in the local paper. It's a small advert, has his number, name, and something about only taking special cases. But that phrasing...
It is reminiscent of what Olin said in the recording.
Any idea what that could mean?
Coincidence?
Really? Come, Charles, use your imagination.
Maybe.
Go on.
H. Gray does a preliminary inquiry to those suffering most from mental illness. Perhaps he only sells his services to therapists and the like. That seems like a specialized field.
That's your conclusion? You really believe that?
Of course not. That would be ridiculous. It is imaginative, though. I see why you mentioned H. Gray first, leading with the most vague. Good choice. I would guess Olin's son was easier to dig information up?
Absolutely not. I have nothing on Eli. No record of his birth, school documents, library cards. Completely no official proof he exists. The only thing I was able to find was a YouTube channel, which admittedly may not be him. It sounded like his voice, but I couldn't confirm a visual. It's an erratic show. Not sure what it's about.
And how many work hours did you spend on YouTube?
Yeah, so anyways, I wasn't able to get anything on him.
When is this meeting?
Tomorrow at noon.
Let's call the workday here, then.
As you command, Captain.
Nope. Don't like that. Dr. Charles Talbot recording for Clear Minds, Inc., Outpatient Therapy Division, Internal Records. The date is July 20th, 2022. It's almost noon. Dr. Donahue has set up a meeting, but he has been quiet about the details. The meeting is with 1H Gray and Eli Olin. Additionally, Dr. Donahue insists on being in the room, and, for once, I agree. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. It should be noted that the low output of productivity for the day is due to this reason.
Oh, stop it, Charles. This could still be very productive.
I meant for the purpose of audio logs. In any case, I'll pick this up at the meeting. Please, take a seat. For the sake of transparency, I must inform you that I am recording this conversation.
As am I.
Wait, was I supposed to bring one? Aw, man, I'm so sorry about that. I could still go grab one. It's kind of a far walk, but I could jog home.
No, it's fine. If you want, I can make you a copy. For now, let's just start off with names. I'm Dr. Charles Talbot.
Dr. Lucian Donahue. I'm sitting in as witness, but I remind you, it is my lunch hour.
Hi, I'm Elijah Olin. Eli is fine. I'm a Leo if it matters.
It doesn't.
But it does explain a few things.
H. Gray.
Can I get your full name?
No.
Off to a great start. Okay, let's just begin, shall we? What is this meeting about?
What? Your assistant didn't already tell you?
Clear Minds has a strict policy about communication. That policy is to be as vague and annoying as possible. Also, I'm no one's assistant.
Figures. I'll cut to it. You've been misinformed. Dr. Olin has not retired. He is missing.
Bold statement. You understand if I don't believe you. I saw the paperwork myself. Do you have any proof?
Proof? How do we even prove that? My dad is missing. It's not like he left a note saying, "Hey, going missing. Use this as proof just in case." And even if he did, what kind of proof would that even be?
Eli. Deep breath.
Okay. Inhale and exhale.
Dr. Olin was a friend. Well, perhaps the closest thing a guy like myself could ever call a friend. This city, much like the rain, it never lets up. No downpour could ever clear the gutters. Trash finds its way in every alley. I've made a living from clearing that trash when I can. I remember when I first saw Olin.
I'm gonna stop you there.
Aw, Charles, it was just getting good.
Even if what you say is true, not saying that it is, why this meeting? Why not go to the police?
The police would only be inviting danger. Are you new to this city?
Yes, but I'm no stranger to the concept of corrupt police.
Corrupt? That's a word for it. I'm here because I believe Olin found something. And that something is why he's gone missing.
This something would be...
Not sure yet. There has to be a clue somewhere in this office.
We already checked at home. No clues there. We did find my missing Simon Says game. I thought I lost it. Dad says it's a good game for...
I see where this is going. I must decline. I can't have you searching through this office. There is confidential patient information here. If I find anything, I'll be sure to send it your way.
We'll get out of your hair then. Eli, let's go.
Nice meeting you, Mr. Talbot. So we go to Plan B? Break in when they leave. I've always wanted to use that grappling hook.
Wait. Take a seat.
I was joking. I'm pretty funny like that. I think...
I'm not going to let this go.
I'm getting that. If your plan is to break into this, or any Clear Minds office, I would advise against that. We can hit hard, and we will. Do you understand?
I'm well aware of what Clear Minds can do.
That being said, I would like to work out a deal.
No thank you. I may be desperate, but a deal with your company? I'm not that desperate.
This wouldn't be with the company. This deal would be with me.
With you. What did you have in mind?
This project scope is bigger than I anticipated. I could use some help. Additionally, if, and that's a big if, Dr. Olin is missing and Clear Minds is covering it up, I would like to know.
Really? You're gonna let us look for clues? Thank you so much, Mr. Talbot. You know, I thought you were scary, but you're not so bad.
I have some conditions, of course. You two will be unofficial, unpaid interns. You will help make audio logs of some of these files here, so long as they don't have any legal personal information. For each audio log you do, you will be allowed to look through one already sorted box. You must put everything back to where you found it, and if you find any clues, you may not take them, especially if there's sensitive information on said clue. Instead, you will be allowed to take notes that I will inspect. If you break any of these conditions, your access will be revoked.
That's it? That's your deal?
I will also provide a notebook for you. You will, of course, have to bring your own pens.
Fine. Deal. When can we start?
Tomorrow. We'll have to make arrangements. We open at 7 a.m. sharp. Don't be late.
Understood. Let's go, Eli. We should check your house one more time.
H. Gray, I got this perfect pen for this. I got this, H. Gray.
Surely they are long gone. May I speak now?
It should be clear. Go ahead.
First, where did that come from? I've never seen that side of you before, Charles.
It was what was needed.
Clear minds hits hard, does it? What exactly does that threat mean, Charles?
We have a robust amount of lawyers. For now, I'm glad that H. Gray is content with the weight of that. However, he believes his friend is missing. Should he decide to change his mind on caring about legal ramifications.
I see. Keep your enemies close. I'm well aware of the strategy.
Exactly. I wasn't lying about arrangements. We will keep the secondary recording space. However, we must find another place to store all of the sorted files. Also, we will need to change the locks on the small office and the new space. Each morning before opening, we will move one box from the new space to the main office, and then back well after they leave.
Smart. And what of the gun? Mr. Gray may know it's here, and even its location, if he was indeed that close to Dr. Olin.
Good thinking. We should move that to a more secure spot as well. Let's get to work. This episode was written and produced by Christopher George. Script editing was done by Dalton Lewis. Charles Talbot was played by Christopher George. Lucian Donahue was played by Dakota Hamlin. H. Gray was played by Michael Williams. Eli was played by Dalton Lewis. Hey, Chris here. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Patient Files. We are so excited and thankful to be able to bring you this and every episode, past and future. None of this would be possible without you rock stars. Speaking of stars, we like them. Make sure to give us 5 of them, and hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it does help us out, and makes it easier for other people to find us. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/thepatientfiles. We have early access to episodes and scripts, as well as we have plans for some upcoming bonus content, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, stay safe and stay sane.